The sleek electric car purred through the wrought iron gates of the Sterling estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, its silence a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Darius Thorne's heart. He adjusted the collar of his tailored suit, the silk cool against his neck, his dark skin a striking contrast to the fading New England sunset. His heart thrummed, not from the courtroom battle he'd waged hours earlier, but from the new arena awaiting him, the Sterling family. A dynasty of old money and entrenched privilege whose whispers of elitism had reached his ears even in his modest Brooklyn apartment. "They'll see how incredible you are." Willow Sterling, his love since their college days, squeezed his hand from the driver's seat, her blue eyes warm. Darius offered a tight smile, his gaze flickering with resolve, but a shadow of doubt lingered. He'd faced hostile judges, but this was personal. Darius Thorne, 29, a brilliant black lawyer, had carved a path from Brooklyn's vibrant streets to Yale's hallowed halls, his sharp mind a weapon for justice. Today he was a force, his name synonymous with groundbreaking legal victories for marginalized communities. But as he stepped onto the polished marble of the Sterling foyer, his heart thundered not for himself, but for Willow, whose burgeoning tech empire was now embroiled in a ruthless corporate fraud scandal. A battle he'd just won in court, saving her from ruin. The Sterling mansion loomed like a granite monument, its white columns gleaming under floodlights, reflecting manicured gardens where roses, defying the late autumn chill, bloomed in defiant perfection. Darius's Italian leather shoes clicked on the cold stone, each step a deliberate declaration of his presence in a world built on generations of inherited wealth and exclusionary practices. The heavy oak door swung open to reveal Evelyn Sterling, Willow's mother. Her platinum hair was swept into a perfect chignon, her pale blue gown whispering old money and effortless superiority. "Willow, darling," she said, her embrace of her daughter brief and almost ritualistic. Her smile was polished but brittle as her eyes slid to Darius, lingering with an unspoken appraisal. "And you must be Darius," she uttered, the words laced with an almost imperceptible disdain, her handshake a fleeting, cool graze that left Darius's palm cold. Inside, the foyer was a cathedral of excess, crystal chandeliers scattering prisms across the vast marble floors, a grand staircase curling like a fairy tale gone sour. Robert Sterling, Willow's father, emerged from a side room, his bespoke suit impeccable, his presence commanding. His nod was curt, almost imperceptible. "Welcome," he muttered, his voice a formality, his eyes barely meeting Darius's, as if acknowledging him was a chore. Isabel, Willow's younger sister, bounded in, her blonde hair bouncing, her Ivy League confidence radiating at 24. "So you're the lawyer?" she chirped, her smile sharp, her gaze sweeping Darius's suit, his composed demeanor, his very presence, as if he were an interesting specimen. That trial was quite the spectacle. The word spectacle carried a distinct sting, as if Darius's hard-won victory in a complex fraud case was mere entertainment. A performance rather than a triumph of intellect and justice. The dining room was a masterpiece of decadence, a mahogany table draped in silk, silver candelabras casting a soft glow. Darius took his seat beside Willow, his posture impeccable, his smile a shield against the unspoken judgments. But the air was thick with scrutiny, the Sterling's eyes dissecting him like a specimen under a microscope. Evelyn lifted a wine glass, her gaze piercing. "So, Darius," she began, her tone light, almost conversational. "You grew up in Brooklyn, didn't you? Such a vibrant borough." The word vibrant dripped with thinly veiled condescension, as if his roots were a curiosity unfit for their insulated world. "Yes, Brooklyn," Darius replied, his voice steady, his pride a quiet, unshakable fire. "My mother was a dedicated public school teacher, my father, a tireless union foreman. They worked tirelessly, often double shifts, to give me and my siblings a future they never had." He held Evelyn's gaze, daring her to dismiss the profound sacrifice woven into every thread of his story. Evelyn's lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "How resilient," she purred, the word laced with the kind of condescension usually reserved for quaint charities. Isabel twirled her glass, her eyes glinting with a mischievousness that masked something sharper. "Yale's generous with scholarships, I hear. Must have been a game changer for you." The implication that Darius's success was charity, not the result of arduous effort and superior intellect, cut like a precisely aimed blade. Darius's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he kept his composure. "I earned it," he said, his voice clear, each word precise. "Top grades, top scores, countless hours of study. Nothing was given, everything was earned." Willow's hand found his under the table, her grip fierce, a silent anchor. "Darius is brilliant," she declared, her tone sharp, her loyalty unwavering. "He saved me in court. You should have seen him dismantle Vance's case." But his family pressed on, their voices weaving a tapestry of exclusion. Robert leaned back, his Scotch glass glinting in the candlelight. "Willow's business has been a mess lately," he said, his eyes flicking to Darius, a subtle yet pointed accusation. "Bad luck seems to follow some people." The insinuation hung heavy in the opulent air. Evelyn nodded, a tight, knowing smile on her lips. "It's almost like a dark cloud has settled over the family." The words were a dagger, branding Darius the source of Willow's woes, his blackness implicitly a stain in their pristine, carefully constructed world. Darius's pulse raced, a hot throb behind his temples, his fingers curling around his water glass, the cold anchoring him. He'd faced prejudice before, in classrooms where his voice was dismissed, in boardrooms where his presence drew uncomfortable stares. But this was a new kind of venom, cloaked in silk and civility, delivered with practiced smiles. Willow's face reddened, her anger palpable. "That's unfair," she snapped, her voice ringing with defiance. "Darius is the reason I'm free, the reason my company still stands." But his family's whispers grew bolder, their laughter a soft, dismissive blade slicing through the facade of hospitality. As servers silently cleared the plates, Darius sat tall, his chin lifted, his heart a storm of hurt and defiance. He was no stranger to battles, but this one cut deeper, threatening the very foundation of the love he and Willow had painstakingly built. The candelabras flickered, their light suddenly feeling cold, and Darius knew this night was only the beginning of a much larger, more personal war. The unsettling truth: later that night, back at Willow's sprawling city apartment, Darius, unable to sleep, stumbled upon a discreetly placed old family photo album. Flipping through it, he found a yellowed picture of a younger Evelyn, arm in arm, smiling broadly with a man Darius now recognized from newspaper clippings. Judge Elias Thorne, the powerful, notoriously conservative judge who had presided over Willow's fraud trial. A chill, colder than the Greenwich night, ran down his spine. The judge's initial skepticism, his pointed questions to Darius during the trial, which Darius had dismissed as mere professional rigor, now took on a sinister new meaning. Had the judge's skepticism been more than just professional? Was the Sterling family's influence deeper, more insidious, more systemic than he could have imagined? This discovery shattered Darius's sense of pure victory, sowing a bitter seed of doubt, not just about the Sterlings, but about the very justice system he so fiercely believed in and had dedicated his life to. His world, built on merit and truth, suddenly felt precarious. Weeks later, the Stamford courtroom was a crucible, its air thick with the weight of an impending verdict. The civil lawsuit, filed by Willow's vengeful rival, Malcolm Vance, sought millions and threatened to bankrupt her thriving company. Darius, exhausted but resolute, stood poised, prepared for the jury's decision. He'd relentlessly exposed Vance's fabricated evidence, even cornering Vance's own CFO into stammered admissions that unraveled the plaintiff's entire case. The verdict, a daring move. "We find in favor of the defendant," the foreman declared, his voice cutting through the tension. A wave of profound relief, almost dizzying in its intensity, washed over Willow, her face breaking into an uninhibited, joyous grin. Darius exhaled slowly, his knees trembling beneath his steady facade. He'd done it, saved Willow's company, salvaged her reputation, secured their future. As they gathered their things, the courtroom's buzz faded, and Willow, emboldened by their shared victory, whispered, "Another dinner with my family. This time, they will see you." Outside, snow fell thicker, cloaking Stamford in a hushed, pristine white. As they descended the courthouse steps, cameras flashed like a sudden flurry of stars, their lenses hungry for the story of the brilliant black lawyer who had defied a corporate titan. Suddenly, Willow stopped mid-step. She turned to Darius, her blue eyes gleaming with unshed tears and profound love, and dropped to one knee in the pristine snow, a small velvet box clasped in her gloved hand. "Darius Thorne," she said, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands, audible even over the distant city hum. "You've fought for me, loved me, carried me through fire. You are my partner, my home, my heart. Will you marry me?" The ring, a magnificent diamond catching the snow's glint, sparkled like a dazzling promise. Darius's breath hitched in his throat, his eyes stinging with tears. He saw their entire past flash before him. Their first clandestine kiss under a starry college night, their dreams scribbled in shared notebooks, their fierce love defying every obstacle. But the Sterling's disdain and the chilling, newly understood influence of Judge Thorne flashed too, a stark warning of battles still ahead. "Yes," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. Willow slid the ring onto his finger, its weight a solemn vow, and rose, pulling him into a searing kiss that tasted of snow and triumphant hope. The assembled crowd erupted into cheers, their applause a roaring crescendo, but Darius's heart was a tangle of overwhelming joy and a simmering, new resolve born from the shocking discovery. The unveiling. That evening, nestled in the quiet privacy of their loft, Darius decided he could no longer keep the secret. With a heavy heart, he laid out the evidence for Willow, the old photo of Evelyn and Judge Thorne, followed by a printout of the anonymous email detailing large, previously undeclared campaign contributions from Sterling family foundations to Judge Thorne's re-election campaign before Willow's trial began. It wasn't direct bribery, but it painted a clear, disturbing picture of systemic influence and potential bias, making the judge's early skepticism in the trial take on a sinister new meaning. Willow's face drained of color as she absorbed the revelation, her hand flying to her mouth. Anger, betrayal, and deep, heartbroken sadness warred in her eyes. "My own family. They would do this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The previous victory felt tainted, her pride momentarily swallowed by a wave of disbelief and rage. The Chicago skyline glittered beyond Darius's new loft apartment, its steel spires piercing the dawn, but the city's pulse couldn't drown out the storm of emotions brewing within him and Willow. The bombshell about her family's subtle manipulation of the justice system hung heavy, a dark cloud more profound than any Evelyn had ever imagined. He was a force, a lawyer whose brilliance had carved a path for justice. But this was different. This was systemic, ingrained, and deeply tied to the woman he loved. The second dinner at the Sterling estate had been a fragile truce, laden with unspoken truths. Isabel, genuinely moved by Darius's public victory, had sought him out days later, offering a raw, earnest apology for her past assumptions. Robert, after a clumsy but genuine coffee meeting where Darius spoke of his humble Brooklyn roots, had admitted, "I didn't see it before. I'm learning." Willow had stood firm, declaring Darius was her partner in every way, her loyalty unshakable. But Evelyn remained a cold, unyielding fortress, her silence a wall, her curt note of misunderstanding offering no true apology. Darius now understood why. One quiet evening, as they painstakingly planned their wedding in their sun-drenched loft, Darius took Willow's hand. He saw the pain and disillusionment in her eyes, but also a newfound steel. "This ends with us," she said, her voice trembling but firm with conviction. "My family's legacy of insidious influence, of pulling strings behind the scenes, it will not define us, it will not be ours. We'll fight it together." Her words were not just a promise but a declaration of war against the very privilege she was born into. Darius pulled her close, his heart swelling with a mix of fierce love and profound respect. Their love, tested by personal prejudice and now by this harsh truth of systemic corruption, was stronger for it, a partnership forged in unwavering courage and a shared moral compass. Willow, now fully aware and enraged by her family's manipulative tactics, immediately consulted with her own independent legal team, determined to understand and dismantle potential avenues for reform within their foundations and investments. Darius, meanwhile, began quietly building a new pro bono case, targeting the pervasive influence of undeclared wealth in the judicial system, his first Meticulously researched target being certain influential judicial campaigns across the state. They would be the new guard, fighting for transparency. The Chicago River shimmered under the city's neon glow, its surface a mirror for the dreams and struggles that pulse through the night. By its edge, Darius and Willow stood hand in hand, the engagement ring a luminous beacon against the encroaching darkness. The Sterling's prejudice hadn't vanished. Evelyn remained distant, consumed by her old ways, and the path to systemic change was long, arduous. But Willow, his fierce partner, stood with him, not just in love, but in a shared, righteous mission for a more equitable future. Their story wasn't over. New battles loomed, complex and deeply entrenched. But Darius Thorne, warrior and lover, stood ready, his light an unextinguishable promise. Their love, a triumph etched irrevocably in the city's pulsing heart. What moved you most in Darius's journey? His unyielding courtroom brilliance, his defiant stand against the Sterling's subtle prejudice, or his unbreakable bond with Willow as they confronted systemic truths? Share your thoughts below. Your support fuels our stories, so subscribe and stay tuned for more. Until next time, keep shining, keep fighting, and we'll meet again by the river of new dreams.